Warning! This stream spoils the entirety of the chapters covered here within. If you wish to experience them without being spoiled, turn back now. Okay, so we have a new format for our nice little manga reviews slash walkthroughs, whatever. Before I would just throw up the borders, throw them off screen when I wasn't using them, whatever. But it seemed to be that I could not do chapter by chapters anymore, and I had to do at least a week thing. So that's what I'm doing. Bringing you. Last week I did these weeks in Shonen. Today I'm bringing you this week in Shonen, and this is going to be a stream style. Not even stream style. This is going to be a stream, a weekly stream where I review, walk through, break down all of the manga in Shonen that I keep up to date with, that I do videos on, being Chainsaw Man and One Piece for now. Who knows? I might blossom and start reviewing other series. Do not expect me to ever My Villain Academia. There is far too much stuff for me to explain to be able to review that. Everything that I need to say for Chainsaw or One Piece, I have already said. Also, I am ever so slightly stalling so I can post an announcement in the server that I'm live. Don't worry, I'm just making the notification. I'm still here. Okay. Okay. So, sorry. For One Piece, we are going to be discussing chapter 1066, and for Chainsaw, we'll be discussing chapter 110. And in case anyone is curious about how all of this format-wise works, One Piece is a text thing. The Chainsaw Man logo is that, and then the picture just shows up. So yeah, that's how we're gonna format this. It's a little bit, it's more of a streamlined process than before. Also, I apologize for this border, this frame, whatever. It was originally a little bit simpler. It was just straight lines with the little part on the bottom for the now discussing. But it looked a little bland, so I decided to add the little circles, and I'm still gonna tinker with it. Hopefully, eventually, I hit a nice middle spot, and yeah, I hope that we eventually hit a nice middle spot, and I like how the stream looks. I like how it runs. I like how it's formatted. Whatever. We're 4 minutes in, and I'm gonna start discussing the first series, which I guess will be One Piece, just because I have everything ready. Chapter 1066, The Will of Ohara, and that is such a important thing. So, I'm gonna say this now because I'm not gonna do my normal. I've tried to shake this before. I'm not gonna go through and do a breakdown of the chapter, or I might because it's that big of a chapter. But going into the chapter, going into this entire last saga, we had a lot of big questions. We had the obvious question of what are we going to do about, like, the Void Sentry. We have to find some stuff out about that. We have to find out who Vegapunk is. Now we know who he is, what the whole system is, so we know that. The world government, we need to know more about the revolutionaries. We need to know more about Sabo. We got the stuff on Sabo. A lot of the major aspects that we needed to know, we found out this chapter. And even stuff that we didn't need to find out, we found out. Small point, because we're obviously going to get into it. Saul. On Ohara, Kuzan was supposed to kill him. But he's still alive and he's in hiding. So, that begs the question, has Kuzan been working, like, behind the Marines' backs this entire time? Was that just an instance of him being like, no, this is unneeded, I'm not going to kill him, but I will put him out of commission? Or has he been, like, with the revolutionaries this entire time, cooking stuff from behind the scenes? The cover story, moving into the chapter, is Germa 66's Cold-Blooded Voyage, Volume 23, Returning to Germa with Company. So this cover story has been going on for a while, especially when you consider all the cut-in chapters with, like, One Piece film red color spreads, stuff that doesn't apply to this cover story. But this story is so major to the actual world that it needs to be adapted somehow. Like, by the time the anime adapts the Law and Blackbeard fight, they need to have adapted this entire cover story, or at least the stuff up till that point. But we start off the chapter with Robin's crew questioning, like, what do you mean this kind of stuff existed way back when? Because remember, Big Boy Robot that Luffy saw, but Vegapunk straight up said, you think this is impressive? You think this is the island of the future? No, it's the island of the past. And cutting to what Vegapunk thinks the Void Century is, because that's where the meat of this chapter lies, is with Vegapunk, the Void Century, and Ohara. He says, I believe the history of the Void Century is the history of a conflict, one between an alliance of 20 nations and this forgotten advanced kingdom. The victorious 20 went on to form the world government and shape history as we know it. And to ensure the ideas of the ancient kingdom wouldn't live on, they erased every trace of it from history. And he makes the point that this is all just conjecture, and the fact that Ohara was also researching this means anyone from Ohara would be a better expert on this than him. And he tells Robin this, no doubt it's a painful memory, but 22 years ago, your home of Ohara was eradicated by a buster call. I think that happened because Ohara uncovered the details of the kingdom's existence. And we move directly into the fact that Vegapunk is sure that everyone that knows about this gets killed. And he says it himself, he could not tell the government about this because they would kill him. Even though Vegapunk is a genius, they cannot risk him telling anyone, which is what he's doing now. And he asks Robin, this is all just conjecture, he has no hard proof, but the world government's actions of eradicating Ohara are tantamount to a confession. That's them just confirming outright that Ohara was on the right track. And then we move on to the fact that Vegapunk would literally get murdered if he were to disclose any of this. And Robin asks, how do you know this? The materials and everything were burned and ruined when Ohara was trashed. And we get a nice little build into this reveal. The day that shocked the world. In a single night, Ohara, the island renowned for its love and knowledge, was wiped out save for one little girl. The scholars were labeled devils, dissidents who plotted to overthrow the government. A few months after the incident, I paid a visit of my own to the scorched earth of Ohara. I was acquainted with Dr. Clover, Professor Clover, the foremost authority on archaeology. I figured I should at least leave some flowers for him. His obsession with the Void Century fueled his adventurous lifestyle, searching for relevant texts the world over. The Marine incarcerated him on at least 10 occasions. By the time he settled down, he was known as the world's most famous archaeologist. Over time, countless scholars were drawn to him, and they flocked to Ohara. It truly became the holy land of archaeology. Unfortunately, the aftermath of those talented minds coming together would prove tragic. When I stepped foot on Ohara, even the tree of knowledge had been burned to cinders. I was speechless when I saw it. But the lake at the center of the island had been filled with an unbelievable number of books. I could only assume that it was the work of the scholars. They must have dedicated their final moments to ensuring that the future had access to their treasure trove of knowledge. If any Marines did discover the books, they were apparently too ignorant to understand their value and left them behind. Ohara had triumphed over them. When I realized that, I couldn't stop myself from crying. Holy shit, that was pretty much just me reading the chapter, obviously. But Ohara literally lives on. They dumped their books into a lake, and when Vegapunk showed up, as we will get revealed later on, they were recovered. And when Vegapunk wanted to bring them back to Punk Hazard, but if the top brass ever found out about him going to Ohara and taking the books, it would all be over. And instead they were taken by someone else. And then we cut to a flashback where we see a younger Vegapunk looking at the lake and seeing giants pulling these books out in a big net. And then a mysterious silhouette from the cliff calls out to Vegapunk, and it is revealed that Dragon knew Old Man Clover. Dragon is there. And we see that Vegapunk's head apparently just keeps growing. I know we thought he was a member of the Big Head tribe. He still might be. But his head just keeps growing. And we've seen that with other members of the Large Head tribe too, that their heads just keep going up. And then we have Dragon saying, and speaking of Clover, that Vegapunk says that he knew that Clover was a bit of a hooligan, but he never thought that he would side with the revolutionaries, or at this point they were known as the Freedom Fighters. And Dragon just straight up says, that's blatant propaganda. Are you worried about the giants? They're not scavengers. I had a word with them just now. It seems they're from Elbath, and they're fully aware of the value of those books. Their captain was a strange giant wrapped head to toe in bandages. He said Ohara sacrificed itself for those treasures, and he couldn't let them be erased from history. After seeing a government lackey like you lurking about, I'm glad they're here to scoop them up and keep them safe. You passed on joining the Freedom Fighters a while ago, but it still made me sick to hear you become one of the Marines' lapdogs. So in this flashback, we get confirmed that Vegapunk was fucking leagues ahead of anyone. And Dragon tried to recruit Vegapunk. But the reason he turned them down is that at the time, Freedom Fighters were not funded enough to make Vegapunk's knowledge useful. He could not put it to full use with the materials that they were going to give him. And we get to see the seeds of the Revolutionary Army planted and grow. When Dragon sits down and says, I'm going to raise an army that can fight them head on. Just watch, Vegapunk. I'll change the world. The will of Ohara won't die with Clover. And we get dialogue from Vegapunk that says that he straight up asks, I thought you hated war, asking Dragon. So it seems that Dragon was so close with Clover and hated the idea of Ohara being snuffed out so badly that he was willing to go against his own ideals of not going to war and not wanting to fight, that he was willing to build an army. He was willing to create the Revolutionary Army with Ivankov and Kuma, in which we get a scene, moving back to present time, that everyone has a different reaction. Nami is just completely shocked at Dragon's just aura, pretty much. Usopp is still hung up on the fact that Vegapunk mentioned Elbath. Robin is, I guess, grappling with the fact that Clover was able to motivate Dragon. Frankie is wondering why Kuma helped them and Vegapunk modified him so much. and Sanji is just now come to terms that Eva was one of the founding fathers of the revolutionaries. And apparently, moving on from that, Vegapunk went to Elbaf, read the books, and took everything in and memorized it. And Robin asks the giant captain, he's named Salt, isn't he? And Vegapunk, as we know from Vegapunk, he knows how to word and work his way around things without it being a straight-up confession. He says he's in hiding now, so I can't confirm anything. And Robin starts crying. And in a different font, at least in the TCBs, said, "Thank you, Dr. Vegapunk. Thank you for letting me know Ohara's sacrifice won't be in vain." And then we get what I consider to be Vegapunk's best character, or at least this part of Vegapunk. And he says, "I try to help progress every field of thought possible. It's my nature as a scholar." Meaning that he's not just interested in being smart. He's not interested in creating things. He's interested in everything. And that is so cool. I don't know why, but it just is. And then we move from there, and in my opinion, this angle's a little bit weaker than the other, but we see that Vegapunk, the true Vegapunk, is revealing himself in front of Bonnie, Luffy, and Chopper, and we see that he's able to recognize Luffy as Dragon's son, obviously because Luffy was ousted as Dragon's son during Marineford. And he says that Bonnie has gotten big, like in grown-up wise, meaning that Vegapunk knew Bonnie as a kid. Meaning that Bonnie, that makes sense how Bonnie knew who Vegapunk was. And that just begs the question, like, obviously we know Vegapunk was not buddies with Kuma, but he knew Kuma. And that's probably why he helped develop him and make him an android. If you want my guess of what happened with Kuma and why he became a warlord, why he became a cyborg, if I had to place a guess, and again, this is just me spitting out a random guess, I'd say it has something to do with the revolutionaries, maybe to lessen the option for the Marines to go full out gung-ho against the revolutionaries. Kuma made a deal where he would become one of their lapdogs to not have them go after the revolutionaries as hard. Because the revolutionaries have been there since the beginning of the series, obviously. They've been here for 20-some years. But that doesn't make sense if you think that Vegapunk made Kuma into an android. He just recently, in the last 2 years, took his last bit of humanity, quote-unquote. So the revolutionaries have been operating without the Marines gunning after them for at least our knowledge of the series, for at least 2 years. Because when Dragon showed up at fucking Logetown, it's not like Smoker activated a buster call on him. Like, oh my god, the leader of the revolutionaries here. It seems like they had an almost uneasy peace where it's like, okay, I know what you're here for. I'm not going to do anything. It seems like the Marines and revolutionaries have found, not an agreement, but a stance that they can both stand on. Like, the Marines get this amount, the revolutionaries get this amount. But now with the revolutionaries pushing so hard, with Sabo being killed, or seemingly killed, with Dragon being witness to what Sabo said about the empty seat, the empty throne on Marijois, all of that begs the question. The revolutionaries are going to attack. They are going to go on the offensive eventually. It's just a matter of time. And I think now with Kuma back, with Sabo more than likely not actually being dead, because there's no way he's dead from that explosion. We're not off-screen killing him. If we were to see Sabo die, it would be in a close-up. As we've seen with our other brother of Luffy, Ace. He had his whole close death scene with Luffy, so I don't think Sabo's just gonna get off screen like that. Quote unquote off screen. We saw the explosion. But I think the revolutionaries are going to attack eventually. Maybe not while we're in Egghead. Maybe not while we're in Elbaf. But eventually, by the end of the series, the revolutionaries will attack. That is what I am saying, and that is my declaration for this final saga. Is the revolutionaries are going to attack. They are going to start a war. Like, we know they've been liberating kingdoms, but that's not, in my mind, a war. I am talking a full-fledged head-to-head conflict. But, like I mentioned at the beginning of the review for this, the fact that we had all these loose threads that we had to somehow wrap up in the final saga, and in my mind, it seemed like it was a very hard sell. The fact that we have to wrap up Vegapunk, we have to wrap up the revolutionaries, anything to do with the Void Century, which by extension, in my opinion, will lead us to Eam and the Five Elders. We now have, the way that I phrase it, is we now have the feathers glued onto the arrow, or the dart, and we now are taking aim at where we are going, and here soon we are going to loose that arrow, and we are going to fly straight towards the final saga. Probably when we land in Elbaf is when I believe the final saga. The Egghead arc, I've been a very vocal critic. I do not like all the introductions to Vegapunk's left, right, and center. But I feel like if it was going to happen, I'm glad it happened now. But I feel like when we reach Elbaf, it is going to be... I think that the final saga will have already started its jog towards us. Like, in my opinion, with every saga, we have seen a light, like a prance, basically, go into a jog, go into a full-out sprint, and then end. With Wano, I believe that Dressrosa acted like that jog into sprint, but that was different because we had so many different things going on. We had Whole Cake, we had Dressrosa, we had Zoe. That was all leading. That was all the jog to the sprint that was Act 1 of Wano. And then even within Wano, there was a bit of a... When everyone was kind of just getting exposition about the country, that was more of a walk. And we slowly started building up jog when all the stuff happened with the Smile Fruits, when we get exposition about that. And then we finally go into a gung-ho sprint when we hit the raid. I think now we're in a light walk stage. We are getting exposition-heavy chapters and all of this. And I think by the time we land in Elbaf, we will already be mid-jog, if not gearing up for a sprint in the series. And of course, the series can hit us with a stopper in the middle of a saga, which it has done before, but that's just how I think this is going to go. What I'm saying is basically, when Elbaf happens, I think this final saga will be going at a quicker pace. So I have hopes for Elbaf. All in all, I loved this chapter, which I have not been able to say for a lot of One Piece chapters lately. Ever since we got out of Wano, with the exception of the stuff with Law and Blackbeard, I haven't really been a big fan of it. But now we have threads being tied up. We also have a tease that the Vegapunk #1 has to show the group something with Frankie, Usopp, Nami, Robin, and Sanji. And that's going to be interesting. Maybe, just maybe, it is the giant robot that Luffy and them just saw. And they're going to miss each other just barely. Or it's going to be something completely different. Either way, I am very excited to see how this arc continues. Finally, I am able to say that I am awaiting the next chapter. All in all, good chapter. I liked it. Also, Vegapunk is, in my opinion, inspired by Albert Einstein with the tongue out and the crazy hair, visible by the panel that's been up for this entire time. But yeah, that's been like a 20-minute conversation about one chapter, so let's go on to the next. which just so happens to be Chainsaw Man. Woo! Chapter 10 or 110, sorry. So, end of last chapter, Denji showed up and ripped Yuko apart. Utterly shredded her. Like, as much as I wanted to argue that, like, no, she's not dead. She's probably gonna, like, she's gonna come back. Nah. We moved from the school. We are now leaving the school about at the halfway point in this chapter. So, what, I'm gonna try my best not to rely on the actual chapter itself now. We start off the chapter in the school, and Yoru is about to fight Denji. Denji doesn't recognize her, which leads to the question, because Denji has seen Asa, like, face to face, is Denji just not noticing that it's Asa? Or is he just, like, does Yoru change Asa's face? Like, straight up make her look different. It'll be interesting to see how that, like, I don't think it's something, I don't think it's something that needs full exposition. I think as long as it's left fairly discussed and we can make our own conclusions. But Denji is about to reveal himself to the girl that he saved, and Yoshida shows up, which I don't know if I mentioned it last chapter, but I was wondering where he was, because Denji was like 1 second away from outing himself as Chainsaw Man. And Denji swears up and down that he was going to do it in a real natural way. But then we cut to outside of school. And there's talk of what happened at the school. Apparently, Yuko killed 4 people in one class. And Asa's having the same nightmare over and over. She's running away from something. It is raining chicken bodies, like dead chicken, obviously in reference to Bucky. And she stops in front of a dark hallway and she wakes up. And I don't know if this is just me looking too close to what is supposed to be like a dark alleyway, but the panel of the alley and the darkness, as she phrases it, looks an awful lot like Denji's dream, where he would be standing in front of the door, but he could never open it. And then Asa wakes up, obviously, because that's what she keeps doing. She gets a drink, and there's a ring at the doorbell, and it's late. So she approaches the door, and Yuko, I'm not even gonna toy with the familiar. No, Yuko tells her, "Don't open the door. You're gonna die if you open the door." And Asa's like, "Oh my god, I'm so glad you're safe. I thought you died." And she opens the door, and Yuko now looks, fiendish, I guess I will phrase, as we found out early Chainsaw Man in general, and just recently got re-explained in the anime. Fiends and hybrids, which are what Denji and Asa technically are different only in the way that fiends have devilish face or heads, and it looks like Asa has something going on in her face. And Asa straight up tells, or Yuko, sorry, not Asa. Yuko straight up says, "I told you not to open the door." And that's when we end the chapter. Again, nice chapter. It's a bit of a, I don't want to say slow burn. We got the build up to the action that we got for how many chapters in a row. And now we're back in that lull, which is nice. I very much enjoy the fact that Fujimoto can give us action-heavy chapters and then fairly quickly dial it back down to a more calm, relaxed slice of life vibe, which is something that I mentioned while our watch party, which is me, Delirious, and Toast Lord, both of which channels are currently on my YouTube account. Like, you can find them both. Toast does some amazing voice work. Real glad that I have someone as talented as Toast, even in my close to inner circle with friends. And Delirious is fucking hilarious. We do watch parties. I record each one, but I haven't released them yet. I think I'm going to do a compilation of all the best moments just for posterity, like, so I can have all the comedy. But yeah, that has been it. There's not a whole lot to talk about in this chapter. It's fairly straightforward. Unlike the One Piece chapter that had a lot of discussion in what this means, this Chainsaw is hard to do that with, because everything that we have to wonder what this means will get explained soon. There's no wondering, oh, this one plot thread from like chapter 3 is still lingering around. No, we know where most of this stuff is going to go eventually. Or at least Fujimoto knows where he's going to take this. So we don't, the way I'd phrase it is, One Piece is an interactive, like an escape room. Put stuff together, try to piece it together as we go. And Chainsaw Man is a roller coaster or any other amusement ride. You just sit back, relax, and enjoy it. You don't have to really think that hard about it. And yeah, that's just how I view these chapters. But I think now is as good a time as any to explain this format, the this week in Shonen. Obviously, it's a week of Shonen, and obviously I'm doing this on a Tuesday. The new Chainsaw chapter is already out. I have not read it. I'm going to here soon, probably after I get off stream. I have a full plan of what I'm going to do today. Not going to lie, I might stream some video games. And I know I keep saying that, but I'm really getting the itch to play some games on stream and just interact with people. So yeah, that'll be fun if I do that. But all in all, the Weekend Shonen thing is supposed to be a way that I don't have to worry about doing a chapter for One Piece, chapter for Chainsaw review. I can lump them together, gush about what I want to gush about, kind of breeze through what I don't think is, at least to me, as interesting as other stuff. Because I'm going to be real, I'm sure a lot of people are enjoying other stuff out of One Piece that I'm not. I'm sure people are enjoying the slower paced exposition. I'm sure people enjoyed the different personalities of Vegapunk and that whole thing. I'm sure, and I was in this group too, that people are very patiently awaiting CP0 to come back to the picture with Rob Lucci. And that's going to be interesting to see, I agree. But that's what I like about these. I can kind of just rush through the stuff I don't want to talk about. I don't feel like I have to fluff out one chapter review for 15 minutes. I can, like this stream, I went on for 20 minutes about One Piece, and I kind of just relegated Chainsaw to like 5 minutes. I like this. It also just sets it so by Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, some point in the weekend, I sit down for anywhere from half an hour to an hour, talk about the chapters, and just give my feedback. And I'm glad that it's a 3-day span that I can do that with, because I've said this before in One Piece videos, and I'll say it again now. I enjoy getting stuff done on Thursday, like One Piece reviews. It gave me a real satisfying sense that I don't have to worry about the video anymore. It's done, it's out there. Fridays, same thing, it feels early. Saturday is what I aimed for every week for One Piece. Sunday was what happened when I just couldn't do it on Saturdays. I did not like doing Sunday videos. They felt late, they felt rushed even. Like, I felt like I was just getting it out to get it out. Except for this stuff, where this is a Tuesday, I believe. Today's Tuesday. I'm going to check real quick, but I'm pretty sure today's Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. It is 3 p.m. And I am just now talking about last week's Chainsaw chapter, which is fine. This is really late. I'm not happy with how late this is, but this is just something I can do instead of having to be like, okay, I can sit down, do the One Piece, and then find another time to sit down and do Chainsaw. I can just sit down and do both of them at once and get it over with. Which, I don't want streaming and stuff to become, like, a task for me. I don't want it to feel like a blech task. I still want it to be fun, which is why I want to do video games. I don't want to just be a manga reviewer or discusser. I want to do other stuff that's more interacting. I want to, God, as cringe as it sounds, I want to play Fortnite on stream and just fucking talk. So yeah, and that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap this up here soon. Get this video sorted out, put tags on it, put put it in playlists, get thumbnails for all the videos that I haven't done thumbnails for, because, again, falling behind. And yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah, until next time, until the next week in Shonen, that has been this week in Shonen, and I hope you enjoyed.